All right. Good evening, everyone. Good morning, wherever you are, depending. So this is Cyber Power of Tigray, as you all know. Thank you for following us. I have our special guest, Ata Barakat, whom has been our top I guess, commentator, or I would say educator in our young but rising media, Cyber Power of Tigray, that is dedicated for Tigray's current events, the crisis against our people in Tigray, but most importantly, our diaspora young people who are inspiring us for standing and speaking firmly against the genocide in Tigray. So tonight, I'm going to have Mr. Barakat go over various topics from the Abiy Ahmed attempts to force young Tegarus to take national exam known as, in Ethiopia, while the Tigray region still remains under a chokehold by a dictator and by Eritrean mercenaries. So this evening, hopefully you'll be able to hear the dire crisis that is taking place as we speak in Tigray, but most importantly, outlining the facts on the ground versus the lies by Abiy Ahmed, including the lobbyists that he hired, paying, I believe, roughly about 35,000 US dollars per a month for someone to advocate lies for him, while Tegaru lives are at great danger. So with that, I'm going to pass on the stage to Mr. Barakat, and I will let him introduce himself as usual, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Mike. As you see, my name is Barakat Kiros. I am a Seattle resident. First of all, thank you, Cyber Power, for being a voice for the voiceless. And I couldn't be prouder to be and share the stage with you, Mike. And also, I want to say welcome from your trip in New York. And
thank you.
a very exciting and a very historical movement that Tigrayans from different parts of the United States came together to process in front of the United Nations. And that is the solidarity that has been solidified among Tigrayans are giving us a hope for many of us, especially this is being led by people like you who are young, dedicated, and very emotional at times, that your dedication is beyond and above. And it has been a lighting rod for many of, or I can say a lighting torch for many of the people who have lost hope. And hope is coming. And thank you for all the service that you guys have doing it. And
Thank you.
for people like me who are in a little bit senior citizen age,
Not yet.
we are not in vain. So I really, I am really so much encouraged and motivated because as you see, we haven't invested so much on our young, and still this is coming from within, from themselves, and that's very remarkable. And I'm really speechless. What will happen if we have invested on you guys? Would have been things different, but bygone is bygone. Now we are all together. We just have to look forward. You have touched so many issues that we're going to talk about today. The, I always call him junta because the description fits him. He's a colonel and he's trying to destroy democratic institution by force and by illegal means. That's what you call junta. But this guy is giving that name for people who are elected democratically, and people are following and echoing like a parrot. And that really amazes me that nobody really wants through the meaning what the junta means. So I'm referring him the junta or the outlaw prime minister who is creating havoc, and the country is going downhill politically, socially, economically. One of the things that happening this week, I mean, it is not new to most of you, but we just have to give a critic. What is his motive? Why he is doing something like this? First of all, let's start with just called Shimagiles in terms. But how could you call Shimagile when you are decided already in favor of the regime, supporting him and blessing the soldiers who are creating so much rape and havoc and killing innocent people? Those are the people who were blessed by those religious leaders. So that's quite amazing. They have never voiced one day when a lot of priests being slaughtered, a lot of young people being killed, not to mention the loot, not to mention the rape. Where was the voice? What really amazes me, even, when people like Sium Basfin and Abai Sahaye and Abanepso, when they were cold handedly being killed, and those people have never voiced. So coming to Tigray with this kind of background fits, I call, they are just an arm and leg of the regime. And they came only for one thing, to do a propaganda campaign for Abiy Ahmed, that, Tigray is fine and everybody is normal and nothing happened, sort of. So first of all, it is an insult for Tigrayans, and also a big lie. Their credibility is low, or already they have, as a religious leaders, some of them like rabbis, churches, and some of them professional athletes like Haile Gebrselassie. That guy, I used to respect him a lot. I think his brain is not as fast as his leg, to say the least. I am not insulting him. He's a good runner. I can admit, but his mind is not as fast as he runs. So it is a mind-boggling, because they came with this kind of background to our home in Tigray, and Tigrayan people are not a gullible people, or something that they're gonna accept. Those people, as I told them, are the face. Even the uh, president, who's supposed to be a woman, and also called the other a peace minister Mofaret. I called her Mahfarit in Tigrinya, just someone who is embarrassing, and she is embarrassing as her name indicates. And I don't know why she's calling herself a peacemaker. They are not a peacemaker, and of course, I mean, they were rejected by the people of Magala and elsewhere, and it was a humiliation, defeat for them. Uh, they want to stay for 3 days to do a propaganda campaign by talking to different groups of educators and community leaders and priests and so on. That was a plan, but the plan has cut short within a day, because this is seems for them like a celebration. We came here to celebrate, sort of thing. Because we never had any voice when their voice matters the least. So I think at the end, because of coming to Tigray, we lost 28 lives, and they are responsible for those lives. If they didn't come, if they didn't show up, those lives has been probably protected. So it is because of their making. We lost 28 innocent young who have future ahead of their age and their time, and that is the saddest part. So
let me interject there. So if Haile Selassie, by the way, as a runner, um, I personally know him. Um, he's much older than I am, but as a young runner myself, I used to actually look up to him. When he was like breaking world records, he inspired me. And of course, Muraz Shifter's they used to call him like um, Yifter's a shifter, meaning that because he always last 300-meter he sprint. So for those of you who are young who have no idea who Muraz Yifter was from Tigray. He was among the top distance runner in Ethiopian history. Now he would be in Tigray history. He actually, before he passed away, he was a resident in Canada. And I had the opportunity to meet with Muraz Yifter actually here in the state of Oregon, where I reside, because it's big for running. But going back to Haile Gebrselassie, how a person like him, how does people at his stage give a 25% discount to Ethiopians who killed Tegaru, and then turn around and come to Mekelle in the name of mediation, while so many are suffering on the hands of a dictator government? How could you represent a dictator and come back to a city where people don't want you, and yet you try to take a photo ops, and then when people get on the street and protest and say we don't want you, the result what you talked about, the killing. So I'm just like trying to, for the young, Tagaro diaspora, who in New York, I was blessed to meet them. I was blessed to see it was a mix of all ages, of course. But then what I was inspired is the young people who showed up, with, just everybody wearing face masks, everybody just just layered out for the snow, for the cold, and not complaining. I'm not going to get emotional today because I'm over with my emotion. It's like I'm no longer becoming emotional, but I'm becoming more inspired. I think you saw this, and I believe the world saw this, but I have to try to get you comment on it. But before you did that, let me share what I'm talking about, and then people have an idea. Again, I'm sure it's something that you've already saw, but for those who have not seen it, I don't know if you can see that. So I'm gonna blow it for a sec so everyone else could see it in a larger photo op. All right, there you go. So these young people, young Tegaru, this is in front of the United Nations headquarters in New York City. And, when I saw this, I just, how creative are we, Tegaru? This young person took his shoes off so he doesn't get his friends' like shoulders, clothes dirty. And he's holding nothing, actually, standing on two young men's, two people's shoulder. Excuse me, not the young men, but one's a young girl and the other one's young man, holding the flag to raise it to the level of the rest of the flags. Um, I know that I get carried away, I get emotional, but that's what the real Tagara means. That's what inspired me. So even though like I was stuck on a flight yesterday, whatever, like it took me an extra day, I didn't really care. I was just so happy. Honestly, I did not like. I mean, honestly, I didn't care about the snow. I didn't care how cold it was. So this is also I want to show to our viewers. This week is Yekatit Aser Tahade, which is 46 years ago. This week, I'm going to let you finish up the history of Tegaru, but you know what happened 46 years ago this week. And so I want all who are following us tonight to pay attention the history that the Tegaru diaspora are making. I don't want to just keep talking, but what do you take from these young people raising the flag for Tigray in front of the United Nations?
Let me say this from the bottom of my heart, Mike. Our spirit is lifted as high as the flag of our Tigray. That's what happened, to tell you. It is, imagine, this is something that we never thought it's going to happen. And the creativity, as you're trying to describe it, is a mind-boggling, with that kind of weather. And the flag is as high as it could be. So this is something, a milestone in our lifetime. It is. We are looking at it for the realization of that dream. It is coming. It is by our blood and sweat. See, our blood is not in vain. All the sacrifice is a symbol of resistance. That is a symbol of peace. That is a symbol of Tigrayanet. Tigray. That's what it is. Look at it. All the adversity throughout the history. Still, resistance was part and partial of our life. Knowing history a little bit, I am much older than you are. I have never seen in my lifetime one generation without a war. Never seen. Great mother. Look at it. And the duplicity that the Shuan Empire, starting from Mililik, what they have done systematically in terms of imposing tax, closing schools. There are so many things untold history, what has happened in Tigray. But despite all, we still keep fighting. They try to bury us. They try to dehumanize us. This all happened. I mean, I was talking yesterday in our Saturday Zoom meeting. We have very knowledgeable people, especially during the reign of Menelik in Battle of Adwa. As you know, that savage troops, they don't have logistics and all those things. They were after they finished their logistic food and there was nothing left in Tigray, even a chicken. They just, like a locust, they ransack. Tigray was almost humanly, in terms of life, in terms of livestock, in terms of crops, nothing. This never been told in the history, because all the history was a glory of, Menelik and what, and nobody has written what happened during that time. So since that, and now I see the same parallel, trying to eradicate Tigrayanis in terms of life, in terms of property, in terms of psychological makeup. This is what's happening. That's what many of young people like you, they are thinking something has to be done to shift our hope in a higher gear, just like what they did, lifting up. This is something that is lifting the spirit of the Tigrayanis. What they thought is by doing rape, by doing loot, by doing all genocide, they're trying to lower the spirit of Tigrayanis. But Tigrayanis are just coming after. The more you push harder, the more patriotic you became. So I just want to tell you this, how proud, as an individual, how proud I am. And suddenly it came to my face, the realization of independent Tigray. One day, as they said, hope doesn't kill. We live with hope, and we live through sacrifice to realize that dream. And I am very proud of that. Having said, coming back to Haile Gebrselassie, the questions that you posed to me, I have to be honest. I cannot tell you what is going through his mind.
I'm going to interrupt you before you finish out with Haile Selassie. You won't believe this, but when I posted that flag with those amazing young people, I posted it on 3 websites, including my own Facebook, and one of them is Gaza Tegaru Tegaru Trai, and there's been more than 30K viewed within 2 days. And the response the messages that comes through is actually, I told you that I'm not going to get emotional, but I'm not getting emotional because of what's happening. But now it's getting me because the people who are like send me messages about it, how proud they are. Like actually, and I talked to Ambassador Fasaha also briefly when we were there in New York, and he gave an amazing speech both in Tigrayan and English. I want you to know that the positivity, from people like yourself, from Ambassador Fasaha, various, people who have been diplomats, who have been in media, and who understands fully about the history and the culture and everything about Tigray and Ethiopia and Eritrea. The motivation also comes within because it is no longer Tegaru division. It is Tegaru unity, no matter what age. I mean, the youngest person that I actually spoke with in New York City was 6 years old. I just want to point that out to you. But go ahead. I apologize. You were talking about Haile.
Yeah. So coming back, if you remember during the riot, one of his lectures hotel in Sidamo has been ransacked, if you remember.
Yep.
And as he spoke, he lost in terms of millions in business, and also in loot and burn. And this is a guy, after this, he's trying to solicit some kind of support from a government, and he's asking. I mean, to tell you quite frankly, I mean, I wouldn't say he was a beneficiary, but since what happened, and he started to shift his gear, in terms of being more opportunist than what he was before. So I don't think so he cares so much about peace in Ethiopia. What he cares is about his business, just like any of those opportunists surrounded the junta Abiy, because they don't care. It is about them. If they care about peace, then they shouldn't do that kind of societal mission, to say the least. So I think it doesn't come from his heart, because what he is looking at the reality on the ground is something totally different. As an Ethiopian, he cannot. I mean, this is a guy who have access for all international media outlets. He has. I mean, he cannot, unless he want to be deaf. He doesn't want to see what's going on around the world, what's going on in Tigray. Any foreign outlet, BBC, Al Jazeera, whatnot, it is well recorded. And Europeans are being so much traumatized by it. Only the Ethiopian people. I have to say this. I have to say it. How could you say people? Yeah, when the whole population is so silent and supporting this fascist regime, the atrocity that's being committed in Tigray, from even preventing food delivery, it is an act of genocide. Forget about the rape. Forget about the killing of innocent people. Even one act is a part of genocide. He is doing purposely not reach out food for those intended recipients, which is about 4.5 million people in need. He's deliberately making excuses so that international aids will never get food in Tigray. Besides the rape, besides the killing of innocent people. So this is a very tragedy when people go down to that kind of level, who have a fame and who could have do better in terms of reaching out with the caliber he has. He could have said more about peace by condemning the war. But I guess he is trying to solicit his own narrow business activity somewhere in Addis or in Sidama. So this is really what bothers me as a Tigrayan, that even going back to Makala with the president taking diapers and some hygiene for women is just an insult, as it has been told. So in a short, Mike, I don't know. I don't know what is his mind, really, to be embroiled in this kind of political get for his personal gain at the expense of Tigrayans. He shouldn't be there. What he has brought is insult for himself and misery for most of our beloved Tegaru, which I said we lost about 28 innocent lives. And it is very sad. Such an international fame and persona, he is supporting a genocide, and he's just putting in question his credibility in the eyes of the world. I mean, he's a famous guy. He has very remarkable records in his lifetime, but at the end, he's tarnishing his name for nothing, and that's what I have to say.
So, is it really like every Ethiopian at this point, no matter what their status is, their agenda, their goal is really to brush off the massacre, brush off the looting, brush off everything that's happening at the same time, when mediation the so-called mediation fails, then you have additional atrocity. And I'm just wondering, like, when you have that fails in the country, you're trying to force students to take exam, like I was saying at the beginning, 8th grade and 12th grade. For those of you who are not familiar with, Ethiopia has a national standardized test. And Mr. Baraka is going to, explain that a little bit more broader than I will. But in short, while Tegaru are in desperate needs of food and shelter, he's trying to get a photo op and trying to force young Tegaru to take exams. And these people are dying of like starvation. And yet, I'm going to, let you cover that real quickly. And then to go along with that, his failure back home and our strength in the diaspora is irritated him to the point where he's willing to spend millions of dollars on white men who have no idea of what's happening in Tigray. And in fact, these gentlemen who have no history or connection in the region are going to be trying to be lobbyists for him in the United States Senate, Congress, and the White House. And so for the young Tagars also to pay attention, I'm going to show you guys their pictures, who they are on the screen in a second here. But I want to make sure that the group, the wonderful ladies that I met from Colorado, we had early lunch together on Saturday, on Friday, and we made sure that we initiated the contact already, informing them what they were doing by supporting the dictator and taking money at the expense of Tegaru is basically putting blood on their hands. Anyway, I'll let you cover that, and then I'm going to show who they are so the audience knows what we are talking about. And hopefully we can reach out to these people and let the world know that these people's actions are uncalled for, and Tagarus need to continue the fight because I think obviously Abiy Ahmed is desperate. Hopefully you can see that screen.
Thank you, Mike. Yes, let it be known, those lobbyists, they are assisting a regime who is turning his own people against his own people and suspend election for his own political gain, and ceded the territorial integrity of his nation willingly. And it is blood money dripping in their hands. We will shame them and expose them in social media. The world is not to have learned anything from Rwandan genocide. For the last 3 months, the world leaders have not done much to protect people of Tigray from further genocide and displacement from their home by unelected junta of Ethiopia. I have to say, over 4 million of Tigray have been systematically starved by the Ethiopian regime, hiding its crime against genocide in terms of by saying to restore rule and order. The Eritrean mercenaries are paid and brought by Abiy against his own people. They committed suicide, they committed genocide, rape, and loot. Tigrayans in a broad daylight. The world shamelessly is acting, sheeplessly doing very little against such a violation of international law and the Genocide Convention, and the most scared of all laws and natural laws of sanctuary of life. The United Nations Convention of the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, 1948, genocide defines genocide in Article 2 as follows. Article 2, the present convention of genocide means any of the following acts committed with intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial, religious group, such as killing members of the group, which is Tigrayans, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, we are Tigrayans, what's happening, and deliberately inflicting on the group condition of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in a park. That's what mosque, churches, infrastructures. Imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group, forcibly transferring children or a group of another group. The situation in Tigray is a textbook case of genocide. The Abiy, with his conspicuous Eritrean dictator, has committed genocide. That's what we are saying, because all Article 2, 1948 conviction attests to that fact. As far as I am concerned, there is no worse threat to a world, to our community, decency, and to human civilization than genocide in Tigray. Thousands of Tigrayans are driven out of their homes, land, and hundreds of thousands have been murdered, countless numbers of women raped. All those atrocities and crimes were committed by the Eritrean, by Abiy Defense Forces, by Amhara, vicious armed forces assisted by EAU drone. The government of Ethiopia itself, it was destroying scores of villages, murdering an uncountable number of people using its army and advanced weapon system of helicopter, etc. It does not take a great insight to realize the government Abiy has committed genocide and allow criminals to commit genocide. This has violated genocide convention. All members of the United Nations had an obligation to protect the people of Tigray, and the obligation includes promptness of sanction to punish the government of Ethiopia. The Genocide Convention imposes an obligation to the member of United Nations, both as collective, unit, and individually, to punish those individuals and governments that violate the Genocide Convention, and that obligation is comes. This is with no reason that we are talking about genocide is happening in Tigray for the last 100+ days. So, in a short, in such a frenzy atmosphere, this regime, this fascist regime, is trying to open school. That means just like telling a fox to herd sheep. This regime is with these mercenary Eritreans are going after users underage, one. Second, educators. Third, all young, trying to eliminate Tigrayans. So in that kind of a frenzy condition, opening to school is like, having our kids and children, here you are, do whatever you want. That sort of. So with this kind of atmosphere, genocide is being done on a daily basis. I will say any Tigrayans, we oppose. They better stay in their house. The chance for their survival is much greater by staying in their house than going collectively. God knows what's going to do. Look at it, the behavior of this regime, what he has done, 100 days. So we opposed it, any opening of the school. I will repeat it, we opposed it for the sake of their security, for the sake of their survival. And I have a message for those who are able to join the Tigray Defense Forces. Please do so. Your survival rate is much higher than staying somewhere in the corners of a village and Makalas or Adigrat or Zalambasas street. So yes, we are not going to trust this regime. Even any mediation comes, I'm not going to trust this regime. And it reminds me Indonesia in 1965. Indonesia had an uprising, and there was a fight between communists and the military junta. And the military junta said, "No problem, we will work together. Why don't you come? Let's have a mediation." And those communists, they believed the junta. So they gave up their weapons, and what they did was after 6 months, they killed them one by one. So I will never trust this junta. And the book says people of Indonesia unite to overthrow the fascist regime. So, you're talking about mediation with this government, with this regime. No, I will never trust. Never, never trust. Especially headed by Isaias. Look at Algiers agreement, what it brought us. It brought us only a misery, not a peace. So, in a short, I will advise highly for our users, don't go to the national ministry exam for 6th and 8th grade. This exam is given nationwide throughout Ethiopia at one day. Therefore, Tigray is not at peace because of his own making, and it is a counterproductive for our young kids. Hopefully, if they survive this ordeal, tomorrow they can substitute it with a much greater and a better educational outcome. First of all, why do you have to go to? They have never been in school. Why are going to take exam? The only thing is, Mike, as you have said earlier, it is for political consumption to show things are normal. Students have taken their exams, so nothing to be worried. So what he cares is always about his cheap political campaign with his undebated lies. And, I have never seen as a prime minister who lies, the whole cabinet and who orders to lie his diplomats in world arena. It is a very shame, such a low level is leading the country, and many of the Ethiopians are so silent. Is a mind-boggling that this country is, or the whole population is some kind of amnesia, not to see what's happening in Tigray. I mean, it's just as I have said, they were Somalians, but I think participate in the war about 3,000. Look what is happening in Somalia. They are demanding, the Somalian mothers are demanding, bring our kids. Where are our kids? Bring them. So the government is almost in a total collapse. Here in Ethiopia, from every corners of nationality, they are sending to war front. And nobody is returning, and nobody is demanding, where are our kids? Actually, they are adding more recruitment to that. And this is a nation that has been sleeping in amnesia. I don't know what to tell you, Mike. Just, there is a saying in Amharic, if someone's properly sleep, if you try to wake him up, he will never wake up because he's pretending to sleep. I mean, that's what, are they pretending to sleep? I mean, the whole world is witnessing, the whole world is speaking, the bell is ringing, from all corners of the world. How could you be absent with such action that is so much in front pages across the world? It's not something that, all the media like BBC, Al Jazeera.
So why is he spending millions of dollars for lobbyists while the people on the ground are in a dire needs of basic food and water and electricity?
Oh, Mike, this is really, you might laugh, and some audiences who knows about lobbying in DC, and 35,000 a month is like a packet of a cup of beer, for such especially that involves Egypt. Egyptians spend about at least over $500 million to protect their interests through their lobbies. And this fool, with $35,000 a month for 3 months, 100,000 is nothing, in terms of representing a country. Probably we could have done that. To tell you, contract, if that is much cheap, we could have hired someone. We can raise much money than that. But it tells you this their desperate attempt. And I trying to look about those lobbyist firm, and they are not really that much known. Probably, I don't know what he can get out of it by this amount of money. I agree with you. When the country is in a very desperate for foreign exchange, they are spending their money on such a useless effort. When people are being bombed every day, when people are being raped every day, when people are displacement every day, instead of buying food and medicine for those people who are victimized by his own making. So this guy, he lost his mind, and he just became a mockery of the world. How we are being looked at Ethiopians through the eyes of this stupid former prime minister. And I tell you, he doesn't have any quality of being a leadership. And I have seen and observed it in many occasions, especially when he's going to Asmara with his masters. He's trying to serve tea and popcorn, and he doesn't have any protocol at all. I mean, that's what tells you. And whenever guests, foreign delegators come, he drives a car, and I don't know. I mean, this guy is just a very sad, to say the least. But that kind of personality is being celebrated in Ethiopia. Look at it, the economy. Look at it, everything what this country stands for and build, and hard work and labor to bring this country from the bottom, from the ash to where it is, to be respected in the world arena. And now everything has been disintegrated. Think about it, all the lies. Go to the Renaissance Dam. Every year it was registering 9.5. Since you talk about after lying, corruption, and all those things, is being done at half capacity. And look at the economy from double digit now to zero. Even Eritrea has a better economic forecast and output. So people are, in amnesia, as I said earlier, people are slept because of the many propaganda by SAT 360, being waged for over 6-7 years, over and over. People have been fed this unfair, racist propaganda. Even, people like Tamai, or a beggar, whatever his name is, Lemany or Tamai, or whatever his name is. This is a guy who was saying that 90 million people versus 5 million. And now he's trying to shed a crocodile tear and trying to solace on behalf of our victim sisters and victim brothers for his own gain.
Oh, actually, so his name is Tamen Bayene. I think that's who you were talking to.
Yeah.
Or referring to. So he was lobbying or encouraging many coward Ethiopians to donate to Tegaru, and he was blatantly told, "We don't need a donation." I think that's who you're referring to.
Yeah, I think we should. He has a habit of taking 3% by begging. He has never worked all his life. What he does is this kind of treacherous activity, and I think we should sue them. We should because this is a propaganda campaign of their fruit now that they are harvesting at the expense of Tegaru. Those are the medias that have been propagating for so long to bring and defame the people of Tigray and the Tigrayan state. And this should not be looked easily. We have to go after them. And I have written quite extensively about those destructive forces. They are very shallow. They are, very stupid. They are focused on a very narrow path and try to split words and trying to put on the map. Those kind of, cheap shots at a very respected scholars because they think they have people who can support them so much, who are demented mind, to tell you frank. Tigrayans have never benefited out of it, and they know that. They know that.
So our sister Terha said his name is Tamain, aka Lemain. So
I couldn't disagree.
so it's actually, so here's the thing. Like yesterday, when I returned from New York, a few people reached out to me from Addis Ababa actually, and you won't believe it, but it was I don't know who this guy was actually, but they just that's why I was like, I was refreshing my memory because they blatantly told me actually what he was doing, and they say in Tigrinya, they told me, they said we called him Lemani, and they simply just just talking about how he was just trying to look himself as he cares about humanity, he cares about Tegaru. In fact, it's the opposite, and it is sad. I'm really disappointed for so many Amhara who have every opportunity to stand up and speak up against this evil Abiy Ahmed that has destroyed the country, destroyed the economy, and before you know it, Addis Ababa actually is going to turn into havoc. And when that happens, they will wake up and realize what have we got ourselves into, because right now everything that's happening is happening in Tigray, and they think that they're going to be safe where they're at. And what they don't understand is that when the economy dries out, when the hard currency is no longer available, which is the dollar, when Tegaru stops sending money to Ethiopia, do you know, like, by far the majority of the euros and the dollars and everything is actually being sent by Tegaru. So the wealth of Ethiopia that I beg to differ from many Ethiopians saying that TPLF or EPRDF or Tegaru destroyed Ethiopia for 27 years. Well, congratulations. But you know what? Actually, what they did is they built Ethiopia, as you mentioned, 9 to 10% GDP annually. It actually even beat China, because China is one of the fastest and largest growing economy in the world. But GDP wise, Ethiopia beat China up until Abiy Ahmed destroyed it. So I congratulate actually Ethiopians for their effort to support a dictator who's destroyed their country, who's in trouble now with Eritrea, because you know what? The contract he signed with Isaias Afwerki to pay millions and millions of dollars. I've said it early on on Cyber Power of Tigray, and people were calling me and saying like, "Why are you saying this? So you have no facts behind it." And you know what? I'm not going to tell you guys how I get my facts, but I do know my facts. I get facts first before I speak. So what I've been saying, Martin Plaut just tweeted about it a few days ago, but those of you who follow Cyber Power of Tigray, you heard me talking about it several months back. What Abiy Ahmed did with Isaias Afwerki, I knew what was happening when the war was declared on November 4th. It was within a few weeks after Ephraim actually interviewed me in English and Tigrinya, and I came on the show. I publicly told the followers and listeners that the Ethiopian unelected prime minister have a contract and agreement to pay millions and millions of dollars. In fact, it's in the billions actually. But again, people are going to say, how do you get your information, your fact? Well, the fact is Ethiopia is on the hook to pay Eritrea in the millions now, but in the end, it's actually in the billions. It's billions that Ethiopia does not have. and he's begging the world to forgive him on the debt that Ethiopia has accumulating. So good luck on that. But I want to show a clip what the European Parliament have stated and what's happening, and I want you to comment. And then at the top of the hour, after the video, I would like us to briefly talk in Tigrinya. So
let me say a few things in relation to the one that Mark Platt and what you have said earlier, and was $1 billion that he agreed to pay for the invitation of those mercenary, vicious Eritrean troops in our soil. In return, he paid $500 million. And on the second payment, he was not able to deliver that because there is, as you said, there is no money. So instead, he gave one fighter, if you heard, one fighter plane to Eritrea as a collateral for the amount of that money. And this is a fact. We are not making it up. It is a factual that you guys can check it out. So this is a man who is so desperate. Actually, right now, the Eritrean dictator and mercenaries as the one who is running the country, despite some of the misgivings coming from few courageous generals like General Balai, who said, yes, they are Eritrean troops. I mean, still they are denying. I mean, the whole world is. Yeah, this is very unfortunate. I disagree. We don't try to mislead. We try to bring facts to our listeners. That's not in our nature to defame, to speak a propaganda campaign for no reason. We are the one who are being subjected to such a genocidal act by this fascist regime.
Amen. That is a fact. So here is the clip that I want to show it to our audience, and then I will let you comment. I'm going to play the audio real quick.
At least from my perspective, I have to tell you that I also learned a lot while listening to you. As I said earlier in my introduction and intervention, the priority for all relevant actors along the supply chain of masks is to ensure that users can find the products that are, first of all, safe, that serve the required function and are adapted to their needs. This is the principle. And this is also the case for transparent face masks, covered by the EU legislation on PPE. Honourable members, 3 months into the conflict in Tigray, the EU is still extremely concerned by the situation in Ethiopia. Ethiopia is an important EU partner in the Horn of Africa, and Ethiopia is one of the few countries with whom the EU has a strategic engagement. Our decision to postpone the disbursement of 3 budget support payments for a total amount of 88.5 million euros must be seen in that context, where we are asking for a cease of hostilities, unhindered humanitarian access, and an investigation of reported human rights abuses. As time passes by, let me be clear, colleagues. The humanitarian situation is getting dangerously critical. The newly established administration in Tigray stated mid-January that over 4.5 million people were in need of emergency food assistance, of whom 2.2 million were internally displaced persons with other basic needs. Most of Tigray is now classified as crisis in the food security classification, which is one step before famine, and the health system has collapsed in many places. This requires immediate scale-up of assistance with large-scale full distributions and provision of primary healthcare services. An increase of additional experienced emergency staff is urgently needed. On Monday, together with the High Representative Borrell and Commissioner Lenarchis, we have issued a statement calling for immediate strengthening of actions. First,
So before she goes into detail, do you want to jump on that and then I can replay? I can play continuously.
Yeah, that's fine. She is talking about the special engagement that the European Union has with Ethiopia as an important ally in terms of strategic cooperation in that region. Her concern is first, she like to cease hostility between the two forces, the Abiy regime and the Tigray Defense Forces or Tigrayan state. And the second level, she is talking about the humanitarian need of 4.5 million people and 2 million other immediate need. And also she's talking about the collapse of healthcare system because they are only out of 300 healthcare system or providers. There are only 4 left, and dozen of I think about 14 or something thousand health professionals are unaccountable at this stage. So their health concern she's talking about, and also she's talking about that the investigation of human rights abuse and access for journalists and other humanitarian organizations. And also she talked about briefly about forced return of many of the refugees who are Eritreans. I believe there are about 20,000 people are accountable, and that's also a form of genocide. And also she talks about gender violence and humanitarian law that the European Parliament in many situations they have expressed their concern, and she's also repeating what has been alluded for the fact that the last 2 months EU Parliament was engaged actively, and they have expressed their concern to the regime of Abiy Ahmed, but he was not very cooperative in terms of giving only lip service, but in actual he was not allowing them until last week, but things are changing now. So she's talking about in the short the humanitarian access and sees the size of the hostility, and also investigation of human rights abuse. All right, Mike.
All right. Do you want me to play a little bit more, or do we want to?
I think this is basically.
I think we get the point there, right?
Yeah. So I mean, they have spoken many times, but they are only getting lip service from this administration until recently, and they are holding some of the money that the EU has allocated for Ethiopia until they have fully cooperative and cease the hostility and the investigation of human rights, and allow large scale of food production to the needy one. So far, just only trickling, if there is at all one. And at this time, I like to focus also because, as you know, Mike and many of our listeners, for the last 3 years, the Amhara areas were not allowing, any transportation to go through Tigray. Not only transportation, food access, and any kind of merchandise going not to go through their territory. And most of the aid is, if it's going through, we are not going to see it likely. So something has to be done in that endeavor. I wouldn't trust them. There will be a free package, a free pass, those aid through those territories. Probably the likelihood to be hijacked those food to this region is much higher. And we have to aware the humanitarian organization that they have to make sure and be present when those things are being delivered. Otherwise,
well, I agree with you, and I think they're aware of it. I think the question is, what is the international community going to do when Abiy and Isaias hijacks and steals every assistance that the world is willing to provide to Tigray, which she mentioned, 4.5 million, which now is actually updated to 4.7 million Tegaru out of roughly about 6.5 million. I know some folks have said like as high as 9.5 million. I personally don't know the population, but regardless, when you have nearly 5 million people in a dire needs of humanitarian aid, these cowards sitting in Addis Ababa, it's mind-boggling to me that they even call him Ethiopian government. And, I appreciate the EU speaking out, but I'm like, I'm not as advanced and as more knowledgeable as you would be otherwise, obviously politically, but I'm sick and tired of hearing like we are concerned. I don't want to hear we are concerned. I want to hear that the situation is so bad that we need action. And the action is that even if we have to take a military action, why is it Black life doesn't matter? Every time in Africa, an African nation is under heavy crisis, why is it the European Unions and America have to lecture me that we are concerned? Yes, the concern should have been like in November, but after November, October, December, January, now we are like the third week in February, and they're telling me that we are concerned.
Well, yeah, Mike, let me tell you this. We live in a Western world, and you know how it works between race and racism. I mean, race and racism are intertwined in American politics, to say the least. So, look what the African Union does. Even it doesn't really recognize there is a problem, what's going on in Tigray. I mean, at least, they have a concern. At least, I mean, look at it. African Union, what do they do for all this crisis? Do they intervene? What do they do? They support this fascist regime. This is something that has to be done, to restore rule and order. I don't know which rule and order has to be restored. I really don't have. But as coming to your point, we have to rely on our strengths, on our resources. I mean, Western is fine. It is a good, but it is not a decisive factor, to win the hearts and minds of everyone. But it is a short period that will give us a strength to continue our fight. That's the way we see it, a short window. And on the second level, there is a misconception that I'm really trying to correct many times. For the last 50 years, Tigray population is 6 million. I don't know what they are talking about. Every 25 years, a population doubles. Tigrayan population is over 8-9 million. I can assure you that. Because this is one thing, they are trying to reduce the number so that the people who deserve aid should be cut half. This is one of the tactics that they are using it, and we shouldn't buy to that kind of a ploy. So when we talk about the Tigrayan population, it is at least over 8 million. And I can tell you this. I mean, how many times did you hear the 6 million? the last 25 years is 6 million. It cannot be. There is no sighting. So this is another ploy that is being used to generate, some kind of, they are very minority. They are, kind of, to lower you. You're significant. Because those people, they believe not in strength, they believe in a number of people. That's what they hear, because we are such a number, we can do this, we can do this. It's not, resource, human capital is not, is beneficiary, but not outcome for any. If that is the case, look at Israel and look at the Arabs. They are like 100 times in terms of the size and the population. But coming back to the point, we have to be careful when we say, 6 million. We are depriving people who need more aid, in those affected, rural areas. So, many of us, we have to do this correction, Mike, and I'm trying to pass this message to our listeners as well.
So I'm going to do, before we end the show, we're going to switch gear to Tigrayan. So, Abzia, ናይ 30 ሰከንድ ቲክታክ ተሰርሐት ቪድዮ ኣላ ሕዚ ናይ ተጋሩ ቁፅሪ ሓደ ጸላእቲ ተባሂሎም ሽሞም በብሓደ ዝፅውዑና መናእሰይ ተጋሩ ብቲክታክ ዝሰርሕዋ ኒሃ ዛ ቪድዮ እዚኣ ከስምዐኩም እሞ ዘይሰምዕዋ ሰባት እንተልዮም ንእሽተይ ተስሕቕያ ኣብኣ እንተላ ግን ናይ ብሓቂ እቶም ቁፅሪ ሓደ ንብሎም ናይ ትግራይ ጸላእቲ ዘለዉ ሒዚ ሽሞም ወፂኡ ክፅዋዕ እንተለ ሽሞም በብሓደ እናተስኡ ናብ መድረኽ እዮም ዝጓየዩ
እዚ ብሳቅ ክኸውን ኣሎ ሓደ ግዜ ፖለቲካል ሳታየር ይበሃል
እዚኣማ በቃ ዝሰርሕዋ እዞም ጀጋኑ አይ ቲንክ ናይ መጨረሻ ደስ ትብል እያ ኢለ ዝኣምነላ ስለዚሁ here we go
አብይ አሕመድ አብርሃም በላይ ነጋ ብርሃኑ ጁላ መጫ ደበሌ ኢሳያስ አፈወርቂ ኢሳያስ ነዓም ዳንኤል ክብረት صادق ابراهيم ኖ ሌዋው አብይ አሕመድ
እንደገና ያትስማ
አብርሃም በላይ ነጋ ብርሃኑ ጁላ ደበሌ ኢሳያስ አፈወርቂ ኢሳያስ ነዓም ዳንኤል ክብረት صادق ابراهيم ኖ ሌዋው
Oh my God.
እዚያሲ ሬኻያ ናይ ብሓቂ ትክክለኛ ለያቡ ናይ ትግራይ ኮነ ኢሎም እና እዚ ዓይነት ያንግስተራት እዮም እነውና ኣሕዋትና ተጋሩ
First of all, let me say this.
ብትግርኛ ንግበሮ
ብጣዕሚ ዘኽብዕ እዩ ኣብ ኣብት ኩነታት ዋላ እኳ ህዝብና ብዙሕ ሽግርን ስቃይን ህውከትን ቅትለትን ብዙሕ መከራ ይብፅሕ እዮም እምበር at the end ቁሩብ እዚ ፖለቲካል ሂውመር ዝበሃል እዩ እቲ ናይ ፖለቲካል ሂውመር ሓደ ግዜ ብሃምዚ ድራማ ዓይነት መልክዕ ጌርካ ተቕርቦ ሓደ ግዜ ድማ ብምንታይ ብካርቱን መልክዕ ጌርካ ተቕርቦ እና ዓብዪ እንታይ ስሙ መልእኽቲ ሒዙ ከም መስሓቅ እውን ኮይኑ ኢንተርቴይን ይገብረካ ማለት እዩ እና ከምዚ ዓይነት ጽቡቕ እዩ ሓደ ግዜ ማ ካብቲ ጭንቅና ወፂና ከምዚ ዓይነት ጌርካ እውን መልእኽቲ ምትሕልላፍ ይከኣል እዩ ኩሉ ግዜ ተጨኒቅካ ኣይኮነን መልእኽቲ ተተሓላልፍ አንተ ከም ዝበልኽዎ ብካርቱን መልክዕ ጌርካ ሓሳብካ ትገልጽ ትኽእል ኢኻ መብዛሕትኡ ግዜ ትርኢ ኣለካ ብረድስቲ ኣብ ርእሲ ኢሳያስ ወይ ማንካታት እቲ ኩሉ ትክክለኛ ዝግበር ነገር እዩ ግን ብሂውመር መልክዕ ጌርካ ከተቕርቦ ተለካ እንደገና ሞር እቲ መልእኽቲ ካለለ وانا بزي فولت وسبات قرو ريسبت بخينو كقرب يخلي تايلو وي إلى قرو كريوة اللو تسحوهم قلبهم مالته قلبهم تسحوهم بخالي زي كتسحوهم زي تخيل بزي عينت ملكع سحيبك لابتنا تخا زقبر كيز لابت زنا زقبر ناي قالسي منقدي ويم غودنا تمصون تخيل مالته سلازي كمزي عينت كرياتيفيتي كقصل الله كبارات اعتو علو بحكي زو وانا زي ما بطعم ندولينا كاب خالي غزي بالبلصه ولا لتمحواتنا تفلا لي بوتا زلو كريوات اللو خروف شختا كو هندين مايل كم توسد امره فشختا سلازي هيومر صبويو كل غزي تايل بحال we should not be tight كل غزي تچمدي الناس كنبل يبلناي ناس حبونا تጫወት خاون قوم نغرخا فتقصل تخلي خمو بزوزني اغاطامي بحقي تلمسغن خومن احلف فيري كرياتيفي بزح ندلينا ما عينت بزي تطاو كبل يبلون انكارج كغبر للويو بحقي تحقيس يتايكل قلت عنتو حنت ملختك تحلالفا لدلي قدم خزي ياو الودفيتو ابزي كمصيه key principles of our campaign level نبعلتنا ناي campaign منقد كهلونا له زيت اي استراتيجي تكنيك ستايغرنا هم نتكم اذا عنتو تناي لوبي بزملكع امسيخا نيرخا قدميو انتاي زبل قدم خزي قرب تفلالي بوتات استمرو ذهب كليو expand the scope of our advocacy beyond demonstration هذا demonstration يعني نقبر لنا تفلالي خاو بالعلاي خطاينا كنقبر لنا دما كنحسب لنا كاو demonstration تايو نو سنتر خاطر تصحفكم تو مايك تغور زلخا تريد يونينات ون اغون خا خوينم بلاك لايفز هم تزغور خو اغون خا خوينم فويس كغور مغبا از كل زي نا كامبين استراتيجي تاكتيكني بتوم انتو لوبيس بزملكتو go offensive in our campaign by identifying, exposing and challenging the real bad actors. زم انتو زولنا يم bad actors يم بتويتر كنتفقوا لنا بالسوشيال ميديا كنتفقوا لنا زي ገንዘብ زي تبلعوا زلهم ناي تغارو دميو ناي نصحان دميو ناي ريبس دميو ريب تجبر سبيو لوت تجبر الانجستيس يهم تاخم represent تجبر زلهم لا كم tax payers we can challenge them here نا بزح تايسمو لودفيتو key principle of our campaign level حدا تايسمو PowerPoint presentation نجبرنا خالوت مون كريوه صعرك نجبرنا سلازي بزي عنتو بزو ناي لوبيست بزملكت قروب ناي تويتر كامبين كنغورو لملنا بزم سبات تاصحف سديدل خلخو شير غبره كاوكاتنا غورو توسن بورشن تويت نغبر بفلاي لزا ناي لوبي بتملكت نازم سبات زياتهم بعلا لخالت تايسمو تريد كنغبر بزغاطام زي لزوم منسيات كتحساسب يفتو
ما اتا بروجرام كفتكو وان زلو تا ناي لينك اسكاب زخفتا ناي نيويورك زنبر نايو نيستلي
يور
فوتو لا زن فيديو كليب ناغور كخر يمو
صبو
ياو استي رايكم ناول نحنا اب نيويورك تلنا اين زين
عبيه مايك
داش بيكون بدن بيرنزلو okay there we go how's that
that's good
نا تاهيبنا نيويورك زي جاغانا تغارو معات تاكيبنا ያው ክንደይ ታሽሙ ተገበረይና ደሲልና እዩ ኣብ ኒውዮርክ እንደገና ከምዚ ገርና ንኽንራኸብ ናይ ዕለት 25 ንሰው ተለኽ ሕፅረ ቢልካ ስግለጽ ሒዝና ኣበልኩ ተለኹ
ያ ናይ ኣብ 25 ኣብ ዲሲ ያው ካብ ዝተፈላለዩ ሸነኻት ተጋሩ ክንመጽእ ኢና ኣብ ስቴት ዲፓርትመንት እዚ እውን ዲሞንስትሬት ክንገብር ኢና እቲ ዝካየድ ዘሎ ኣብ ሃገርና ቅልጡፍ ዕላቦ ክረኽቦ እዚ እውን ኣብየት እንብለሉ መዓልቲ ስለ ዝኾነ ተጋሩ ፈተውቲ ተጋሩ ጥራሕ እውን ኣይኮነን ስምዑኒ ፈተውቲ ተጋሩ እውን ክመፁ ዕድመ ንግበር ብዙሕ ተጋሩ ክመፁ ኢና ኢንካሬጅ ክንገብሮም ምክንያቱም ስቴት ዲፓርትመንት ዓብይ ግደ ዘለዎ ስለ ዝኾነ በዚ ኣጋጣሚ እዚ ዝኽኣልኩም ተጋሩ ላብ ዲሲ ል25 ፌብሩዋሪ 25 ክትመፁ ንዕድም እቲ ናይ ፕሮግራም ብዝምልከት ኣብ ኢትዮ ኦብዘርቨር ኣብ ዓይጋ ኣብ ትግራይ ኔት ትግራይ ኦንላይን ኣብ ዝሓፅር ግዜ ፖስት ክግበር እዩ ኣብ ካልኦት ኣብ ሳይበር ፓወር እውን ኣብ ሳይበር ፓወር ኦፍ ትግራይ እውን ከምኡ እና ኣብዚኣ ክነተሓሳስበኩም እንደሊ ንፌብሩዋሪ 25 መዓልቲ ክትኽእሉ ግድነት ኣይኮነን ልትኽእሉ ምክንያቱም ስራሕትኩም እውን ከተቋርፁ ኣይንደልየኩምን ዝኽኣልኩም እዩ ዝኽኣልኩም ሳክሪፋይ ገይርኩም ክትመፁ በዚ ኣጋጣሚ እዚ ብሳይበር ፓወር ስም ከተሓሳስብ ይፈቱ
ታንክ ዩ እንደገና እቲ ዓቕሚ ዘይብሉ ከለ ሂዚ ሓደ ኮሚኒቲ ናይ ትግራይ ኣሜሪካ ሙሉእ ዘሎ እንታይ ዲ ሓሳባት ዘቕርብ ዘሎ ንኮሚኒቲ ሪች ኣውት ገበሩ ንረዳዳእ ንተሓጋገዝ ዝበሃል ሓሳባት እውን ኣሎ እዩ እና ንኣብነት ከም ትፈልጦ ያው ናይ ፖርትላንድ ኦሬጋን ዝነና ኮሚኒቲ ፅቡቅ ሓበሬታት ከምኡ ይመሓላለፍ እዩ ኣሕዋትና ምነው እዮም ሓደ ግዜ ሕፅረት ዘለዎ ሰብ እንተልዩ ክንሕግዝ ኢና እናበሉ ብዙሕ ነገራት ፅቡቅ ስራሕቲ ይካየደሉ እዩና እዚያት ሓሳባት እውን በብኸተምኡ ንክካየድስ ኣድላይ እዩ ማለት እየ
ፅቡቅ ማይክ ፅቡቅ ከምፂኻ ብፍላይ ኣነ ደጋጊመ ከም ዝናገሮ ወጣታት ክኸዱ ፃዕሪ ክንገብር ኣለና ብሰኣን ገንዘብ ድሌት ሃልይዎም ብሰኣን ገንዘብ ክተርፉ የብሎምን ስለዚ ብዝተፈላለየ ኮሚኒቲ ሴንተራት ዘለው ተጋሩ ልዞም ወጣታት ክትሰድዎም ከተተባብዕዎም በዚ ኣጋጣሚ እዚ ዕድመ ንገብር ምክንያቱም እዞም ወጣት ትኩስ ሓይልታት እዩ ዝኩሉ ናዕባዊ ዝኾነ ምንቅስቃሳት ዝግብር ዘሎ እሞ ኣይ ቲንክ ኣብቱ ኣክሽን ዘለዎ ቦታ ክኸዱ ከለው ሞር ምስ ካልኦት ተጋሩ ኣሕዋቶም ተራኺቦም ናይ ስራሕ ልምድን ናይ ኮምሬደርሺፕ ዝመሃርሉ ስለ ዝኾነ በይዛኻትም ኣብ ተፈላለየ ቦታ ዘለኹም ናይ ኮሚኒቲ ናይ ትግራይ ኮሚኒቲ ማሕበራት ልዞም ወጣታት ክኸዱ ልዞም መንእሰያት ክኸዱ ዝድለ ናይ ሞራልን ናይ ፋይናንሻልን ሓገዝ ክትገብርሎም በዚ ኣጋጣሚ እዚ ክነተሓሳስብ ንፈቱ
ታንክ ዩ እና ካብ ዕለት 18 እስካብ ዕለት 20 ከዓን ናይ የካቲት 11 በብኸተሙ ኣሜሪካ ሙሉእ ይካየድ ከም ዘሎም ያው ንገልፀልኩም ማለት እዩ ተረፈ እቲ ሓደ ነገር ሸር ገበራ ዝበልካኒ ሸር ገብራ እየሒዚ ይቅርታ ታሽሙ የገይረ ዘለኹ ሸር ዝገብራ ኣለኹ ትረአላ ደዚያ
ያ
ኦኬ ስለዚ ኣግዝፍ ከብሎ እየ እሞ ናብ ወርድ ዶክመንት እየ ሕሊፈያ ዘለኹ ምክንያቱ እታ ኢሜል እንዳጋጣሚ ናብ ስርሐይ ናይ ስርሐይ ኢሜል ስለ ዝመፀት ታሽሙ ስለ ዘለው ሓደ ክሌቨራ ስለ ዘለው እታ ኢሜል ኣክሰስ ከይትርከብ እየ ከምዚ ገይረ ቀይረያ ዘለኹ እና go ahead
anyway I just want to pass this message for those people especially this is for young Tigrayans who wants to go to Washington DC to demonstrate at the State Department And because of lack of money or lack of resources, we don't want you to be absent from such an event if there is interest to go. So I'll take this opportunity across the United States Tigrayan community centers to help those young who wants to join the movement on February 25th. And I will ask you to help them to do financial contribution for those who are willing to go for this one-day event. This is a very important for the young so that they can forge unity and also share some experiences among different Tigrayans association across the United States.
Wonderful. So at the same time, those of you who follow a group that I have on Messenger, I have posted the entirety of it for you. So as Mr. Barakat stated it, if you guys need more of it, you can reach out to him. You can reach out to me. Can you announce your Twitter account so people can follow you also?
Yeah, my Twitter account is Ethio Observer, and also my name is Barakat Kiros. Two, and also if you like to see more, my website is Ethio Observer observer.net, and you guys can get updated resources about Tigray. You don't have to forge in other websites. It is there for you to get more information in regard of what's going on in our beautiful Tigray.
Very good. Thank you. And now, very shortly, I have another one. Tagadalai hauna ibn arre quwats you hizay arwal kumiyan istates and hile yaw حسرة بالكا أتو بركات حونا نتوم أحواتنا بتلي تقادلتي أميراز نيو قبل ما أنت تمارن زل صريحهم من نيو تاريخنا زغصلوا وزلوا حيلي خبرنا مورالنا أتوم توم إثيوبيا نيو تقارو تشوقينم بقفع محارنا بقفعي فاشيستاوي تأثيرهم زلوا كندي شحاتات كنرسعهم يبلانينا أفسدت زلوا أحواتنا أو هاجر وشتي إلنا عنا تجنو معاتسي كا 4.5 كا 5 مليون هزبي بيتمياتن ببزح نجار يساق زلو يجن تهم أبدي ساوا زلو كنرسعهم يبلان تساقي زلو حواتنا سوريات قال يوم كاب قصم تشوق إنهم تقمت زلو هزي فاشيستاوي أبي أحمد سقاي مكرا بزرقي تجار مخانا نيتقرنيا الزارب قامقا نمتفع إلو وسينو علامة نمحارو بحسوته أمينو أمحارن وعلم كم زيجرام هزبنا زتشكون هو هزبنا قتل تلو دكر سيخ دفران تلوا أبغى إلى زجورو بحسوت بروباغندا زنورو إرتراويان ون بحد وجن ريخا يخاف سيات البتلي سلام أصل فوز يوم نيو يوم أبدا يسبرا إرتراويان تخكل يكون لهم زوج نيو يوم أب هاجر جن قال يوم بفرحي قال يوم بقديتها ناب تግራይ መጽኦም ዝሰርሕዎ ዘለዉ ግፍዕታት ከ እዚያት ሕፅረ ኣቢልካ ሳመራይዝ ሓሳብ ተተቐርብ ካብቲ ፕሮግራምና ክንጭርሾ ኢና ካሊእ ግዜም ከም እንደገና ቀሪብና ሓሳባት ከም ነቐርብ ንህዝብና ከም ሞራል ከም ንድግፍ ናብ ኒውዮርክ ናብቲ ዲስባ ፕሮግራም ሒዝካ ዘለካ ንባዕልካ ከዓ ሞራል ንኸውን ንህዝቢ ሕፅረ ኣቢልካ ስለምንታይ እዩ እቲ መገድታት ንጓዓዞ ዘለና ዕለት 25 እውን ሕፅረ ኣቢልካ እንተትገልፆ ደስ ይብለኒ ታንኪዩ
يغني الليل مايك نومي فلي بزبلة دحري 45 عمت مبل 46 فلي بزبلة ملكعو كنخبرو كلنا بتوز جمرنا يوم حديلنا 46 بس احنا يزلنا عمت فلي بزبلة من قدي عبية تاريخ زحزي عبية تاريخ زحزة دما تأيو 45 عمت لتقالسنا له لتسوقنا له إثيوبيا عبي درجة خبرن زبصحنا له تمليسو موقعنا مواردنا نزخون له كسع مننتا زت كتف لعلاي تحتاي أبز بحال الأواني نازلنا تاي مالتيو ناتنا حلونا أم مسكلنيا من قد زأتي له مالتيو دحر 4-5 عمد بمجمريا درجة أنتم خرعاتنا حاولنا زخونهم تግራይ ዲፌንስ ፎርስስ ኣብ ዘለኹምዎ ቦታ ኦሪርኒ ጠሚኒ ፀሓይ ቃጭልኒ ናይ ዓረር ጥይት እዝነይ ፅሚሙኒ እንተዘይበልኩም ክሳድ ንክሳድ ብፀላኢ እትዋደቁ ዘለኹም ኩርዓትና ሓበና ጀጋኑ እንኳዕ ላብዙ ዝኒሆ ታሪካዊ ዓመት ኣብፅሐኩም ይኾና እናበልኩ ክገልጽ ከለኹ ከም ሓደ ትግራዋይ ዓብይ ኩርዓት እዩ ዝስምዐኒ እዚ እውን ኢለ እዚ እውን ብፍላይ 4-5 ዓመት ተጋዲሎም ብዝተፈላለየ ማዕርግ ኣብ ናይ ኢትዮጵያ ዲፌንስ ፎርስ እናገልገሉ ዝነበሩ ኣብ ፒስ ኪፒንግ ፎርስ 15,000 ዝኾኑ በዓል ሞያ ተጋሩ ፍቆዱ እስር ቤት ፍቆዱ ከርሸለ ፍቆዱ በረኻ ዝፋሽስት ስርዓት እዚ ተኣሲርኩም ዘለኹም ኩሉ ግዜ ኣብ ሕሊናናን ኣብ ልብናን ኢኹም ዘለኹም ተስፋ ይትቁረፁ ሓደ መዓልቲ ምስታ ትፈትዋ ዓድኹም ህዝብኹም ትጋነየሉ ግዜ ርሑቕ ኣይኸውንን ስለዚ ተስፋኹም ኣይተቋርፁ ተስፋ ንሕና እውን ተስፋና ኣይነቋርፅን ኣይረሳዕናኩምን ኣብ ሕሊናና ኢኹም ዘለኹም ብሳልሳይ ደረጃ ድማ ንህዝቢ ትግራይ ከም ህዝቢ ኣብዚ እዋን እዚ ብሰለስተ ብ4 ሓይልታት ብድሮን ብናይ ፋሽስት ኣረመናዊ ስርዓት ህግደፍ እዚ እውን ህግደፍ እየ ዝብል እዚ ህግደፍ ኣብ ህዝቢ ትግራይ ዝግበር ዘሎ ጭፍጨፋ ዝግበር ዘሎ ናይ ደቂ ኣንስትዮ ዓመፅ ዝጠፍእ ኣሎ ንብረት ዝጠፍእ ዘሎ ናይ ታሪካዊ መንነት ዝጠፍእ ዘሎ ብርሃፅናን ብቃልስናን ዘጥራናዮ ንብረት ክወድም ከሎ ተጋሩ يحبنا النمبر قسمنا يسبر نزيبونيو كم معلتنا معلتي ناي تقراوي حالي نعم بابا أم سألاتو زي يبهال وركات شنفتن نامس أزخيط الله نحنا كاو قصر بزيحنا يكونن تروي ዝኾነ ናይ ኣጽዋር መሳርሒ እውን ሒዝና ኣይኮነን ዋንነትን ዕላማን ስለ ዝሓዝና እዩ ዕላማና ጽሩይ ስለ ዝኾነ እዩ ዕላማና በዓልትና ንምምሕዳር ተቃሊስና ዘምጻና እዩ ህገ መንግስቲ ክሽረፍ ከም ዘይብሉ ስለ ዝተቃለስና እዩ መራሕትና ስለ ተቃለስና እዩ መራሕትና ስለ መሪፅና ጠጠው ስለ ዘበልና እዩ እዚ ኩሉ እዚ ኮንስቲቱሽን ለሃበና መሰል እዩ ኣብይ ኣሕመድ ግዚኡ ዘብቃዐ ኬርቴከር ግዚኡ ክሳዕ ኢሌክሽን ወይ ምርጫ ክሳዕ ዝኸይድ ብኢፒአርዲኤፍ ፓርቲ ዝተመረፀ ካብኡ ናብ ባዕሉ ዲክታተርያዊ ስርዓት ብምፍጣር ከምኡ ዝኣመሰሉ ኒዮ ፋሽስትስ ውልቀ ሰባት ኣብ ጎኑ ገይሩ ናይ ብዕልግና ወይ ናይ ብልፅግና ፓርቲ ዝብል ብምስያም ናይ ፋሽስት ስርዓት ንምክያድ እቲ ናይ ዲሞክራሲያዊ ፅላልን እቲ ናይ ዲሞክራሲያውን ኣካይዳ ብምዕንቃፍ ህዝቢ ትግራይ ድማ ስለ ዘይተዋሓጠሉ ልመሰሉ ልመትከሉ ስለ ዝተቃለሰ እዚ ኩሉ ሽግርን ወኸባን መከራን በፂሕዎ ኣሎ ስለዚ ህዝቢ ትግራይ ከምዚ ዝጀመርካዮ ኣንፃር ቃልሲ ኣንፃር መግዛእቲ ሸዋውያን ኣንፃር መግዛእቲ ደርግ ህዝቢ እውን ኣንፃር ኣብይ ኣሕመድን መሰሉን ልውን ናይ ህግደፍ እንታይ እዩ ህግደፍ ባዕሉ ክእውጆ ዘይከኣለ ኩናት ባዕሉ ክእውጆ ዘይከኣለ ኩናት ምስ ኣምሓራ ድሕሪ ኣብ ናይ ቃምሽ ኣምሓራን ኣብ ናይ ኢትዮጵያ ዲፌንስ ፎርስስ ተሓቢኡ እዚ ኩሉ ሽግር የምፅአልና ኣሎ ስለዚ ዓወት የካቲት ናይ ዓወት ምልክት እያ ዓወትን ባዕላ ናተናገረት እያ የካቲት ንመኸዚ ከም ዝበልክዎ ኣብዛ ወርሒ እዚኣ ትግራይ ካብዞም በላዕቲ ሓይልታት ካብዞም ኣንበጣ ካብዞም ኢሰብኣዊ ዝኾኑ ወረርቲ ሓይሊ ነፃ ወፂያ ኩላትና ተጋሩ ኢድ ንኢድ ተተሓሒዝና ዓድና ኣብ ዝበፅሕ ደረጃ ክነብፅሐላ ንኽእል ግዜ እናተቀራረበ እዩ ስለዚ እዚ ዝጀመርናዮ ህዋህብ እዚ ዝጀመርናዮ ጉዕዞ ነዊሕ እዩ ተስፋ ይንቁረፅ ሞር ፀገምን ሽግርን ክመፅእ ከሎ ክንሕር ኣለና ልክዕ ከምዞም ኣሕዋትና ዝኩሉ ቦምብን ዝኩሉ ጠያይትን ዝኩሉ ድሮን ኣብ ርእሳቶም ክፈርሶም ተሎ ንድሕሪት ኣይበሉ ንሕና ዳ ኣብዚ ኣብ ጥዕም ቦታ ከፍ ኢልና ኣቤት ማለት እንታይ እዩ ዘሸግረና ዓድና ትደመላ ንፁሃት ተጋሩ ድሕሪ ኮይና ድማ ልብና ይደመሎ ስለዚ ተጋሩ ኣሕዋተይ እዛ ነገር እዚኣ ተሓልፍ እያ ምክኣል ሓቢርካ ናይ ምስራሕ ምክኣል ግዜ ከዚ እዩ እዚ ግዜ ድማ ግዜ ዝህብ ኣይኮነን እሞ እታ ዓባይ ትግራይ ከዘማዕዲና ንሪኣ ኣለና ፅባሕ ግን ብግብሪ ኣብ ኢድና ጨቢጥና ናብ ድሌትና ቦታት ንወስደላ ግዜ ርሑቕ ኣይኸውንን እሞ bear with us and especially for the young ones don't despair our dream is going to be realized one day and I am certain like Martin Luther King I have a dream all of us we have a dream and this is a dream that is each of us we have something about the future of Tigray what it's going to look like so keep up the fight don't lose hope yes resilience is the gift of Tegaru I couldn't disagree and this day is a very memorable day and a memorable month for Tegaru. February, that's what the struggle started. And it is my sense of hope. Victory will be assured at the end of this month. And I'm certain they are going with the speed of light against these invading forces. The harder they come, the more they become disseminated. So keep up the faith. Tigray تسعر. يغني اللي Mike Howie.
Thank you, Ato Barkat. I appreciate you. For those of you who've been following us, I'm going to just briefly. He covered everything, so I'm going to say briefly. Thank you so much for our guests. This is all volunteer time that we all are doing. But like you say, we live in a civilized society, in a comfortable society. So that is why it is important for Tegaru. And I'm going to target you, young Tegaru. You cannot lose sight of what we're doing. Yeah, we have to continue. So I got this, you all know what he just explained. 46 years ago, what happened? We started the struggle. 17 years later, we defeated the fascist Derg. And now you have Abiy Ahmed, Isaias Afwerki, and his puppets trying to destroy Tigray. That's not going to happen in our watch. So just because we're not in Tigray fighting with the machine guns doesn't mean that we're not fighting for justice for Tegaru, for Tigray to prevail. But you will see when one day, alongside with our brothers and sisters in Tigray, we stand and dance on the street of Mekelle to celebrate Tigray's freedom, Tigray's independence, Tegaru freedom. That's the day, the unity that you have brought. We made a commitment and we made a promise, and I tell you this, and I'm going to keep saying it in the future. Tegaru, أعد ዘለኹም Tegaru, أحوات ኣብ ትግራይ ዘለኹም በተለይ ትሰርሕዎ ዘለኹም ስራሕ ጥይት ብድሕሪት ኣይንቕበልን ብግንባርና ግን ጠጠው ኢልና ጥይት ንኣና ኣውዲቑ ንኻሊእ ስድራና ከይጎድእ እናበልኩም ከም ሓውና ኣቶ በረካት ዝበሎ ቁሪ ቆይሩና እንተይበልኩም ፀሓይ ኣምሪሩና ወቂዑና እንተይበልኩም ጠሚና እንተይበልኩም ትሰርሕዎ ዘለኹም ቃልሲ ኣብ ስደት ዘለና ኣሕዋትኩም ዝመፀ ይምፃ ኢልና ተበጊስና ብፖለቲካ ብገንዘብ እናተዳለና ዝኒሄ ሕጋዊ ዘይኮነ ናይ ኢትዮጵያ ፋሽስት መንግስቲ ዝሰርሖ ዘሎ ግፍዒ ንህዝቢ ትግራይ ከጭበርብር ዝምክሮ ዘሎ ኮነ ኢልና ኢና ንህዝብና ብጎረር ሒዙ ወሰዶ ዘሎ ንሕና ካ ተመሊስና ንፋሽስት አብይ አሕመድ ንኢሳያስ አፈወርቂ ብሕጋዊ ዓለም ናይ መንግስቲ ብጎረሮም ሒዝናዮም እዮም 35 ሚሊዮን ብወርሓዊ ውዕል ኣትዮም ሕሰት ፕሮፓጋንዳ ክዕልፉ ዝፅዕሩ ዘለው ንሕና ከዓ ኣብ ወፃ ዘነና ዝሓዝናዮ ውዕል ንኣኻትኩም ብዝቃድ ዝሕልፈልኩም ዘላ እንታይ እዩ እዚኣቶም ብምንም ተኣምር ንህዝቢ ትግራይ ንመሬት ትግራይ ከይረግፅዎ ሓዊ መሬት ጌርናሎም ኢና ዘለና ቀልዲ ከይመስለኩም ኣብ ስደት ዝነና ተጋሩ ትግርኛ ንኽእል ብቋንቋና ነግረኩም ኣለና እቶም ትግርኛ ዘይኽእሉ ንሃትና ኣብ ኣዲስ ኣበባ ተወለዱ ዝኾኑ ኣብ ወፃኢ ተወለዱ ዝኾኑ ስለንሱ ኢልና ኢና ቋንቋና ብእንግሊዝኛ ንገብሮ ዘለና እምበር ቋንቋና ንዕቕና ወይ ድማ ቋንቋና ረሲዕና ኣይኮነን እዩ ስለንሱ ኩሉ ግዜ እውን ኣብዚ ፕሮግራም ብትግርኛ ዝዛረብ ዘለኹ ኣነ ይርድአኩም ይፈልጥ እየ ግን ቋንቋና ዝሓለፈ ይኣኽለና ኢልና ኢና ቋንቋ ምፍላጥ ፅቡቅ እዩ ሱዳናውያን ዝሰርሕዎ ዘለዉ ንኣና ሱዳናውያን ሽክረን ንብለሎም ኣለና ኩሉ ግዜ ሽክረን ማለት ይቀኒየልና እዩ ታሪክ ስራሕ ዘሎ ብሱዳን ማንኛው ግዜ ብደርጊ ፋሽስቲ ብኢሳያስ አፈወርቂ ፋሽስቲ ሱዳን እዩ ንኣና ዝድግፍ ዘሎ ሱዳን እዩ ንህዝብና ዝሓቅፍ ዘሎ ሱዳን እዩ ንህዝብና ዘምውቕ ዘሎ ስለዚ ኣብዚ ሰሙን እዚ ንኣብነት ኣነ ያው ዋል ሓፍተይ ካብ ተኣቱ ናብ ሱዳን ዳርጋ 2-3 ሰሙን ይኸውን እዩ እንዳጋጣመ ሰሙን እዚ ግን ኣብ ኒውዮርክ እንዳሃለኹ ደዊላ ረኺባትን ኣላ ካብ ሱዳን ካብ ስደት ማለት እዩ ብሓደ ወገን ነቢዐ ብሓደ ወገን ከዓ ደስ ይብልኒ ግን ኩሉ ግዜ ክንቀስን ኩሉ ግዜ ክንሓዝን ክንናደድ የብልናን ኢና በቃ ድሕሪ ሒዚ ሓሪና ክንብገስ ኢና ተበጊስና ኢና ስለዚሁ ጽባሕ ንጎ ከዓ ክወግሕ እዩ ዝመሬት እዚ ክፅልምት ዘለማ ህፃን ቆልዓ እንተኮይኑ ዘይወግሕ ይመስሎም ክወግሕ እዩ እየኹም ትጭቆና መፅኡ ዘሎ ትግፍዕ መፅኡ ዘሎ ጽባሕ ንጎ ክዋረድሉ እዮም ክትሓዘሉ እዮም ብወንጀል ብክሳዶም ሓኒቕና እማ እቶም ግፍዓውያን ዝሰርሑ ዘለው ጽባሕ ንጎ ክንረኽቦም ኢና ናይ ኤርትራ መንግስቲ መንግስቲ ኣይኮነን ንህዝቡ ዝቀትል ንህዝቡ ዝጭቁን ኤርትራማ ካብ ትግራይ ኣብቲ ቀደም ብቁፅሪ ኤርትራ ይበዝሕ ካብ ትግራይ ሎሚ ከ እንታይ ይኮን ዘሎ ኣብ ኤርትራ ዘሎ ህዝቢ 3 ሚልዮን ይኸውን ትግራይ እንድሕር 9 ወይ 10 ሚልዮን ህዝቢ እንድሕር ሒዛ ኤርትራ 12 ወይ 15 ሚልዮን ህዝቢ ክህልዋ ይግብኦ ነይሩ ስለዚ ኤርትራውያን ኣሕዋት ግደፉ ተጋሩ ተመሊሶም እንድሕር ጠንኪሮም እንድሕር ኣሸኒፎም ሂዚ ጽባሕ ንጎ መፅኦም ኤርትራ ህዝቢ ኤርትራ ከጥፍዎ እዩ እናልኩ ትሕስቡ ዘለኹም ሓሰውቲ ኢኹም ኣነ ግሂደ ብቋንቋኹም ክነግረኩም ቋንቋ ንዛረቦ ትግርኛ እዩ ዋላ ኤርትራውያን ተጋሩ ብመውስቦ ብደም ተሓዋዊስና ኢና ዝስራሕ ዘሎ ግፍዒ ኣሕዋትኩም ተይቀረ ሒዘ ትግራይማ ተገዲድና ኢና መፂና እናበሉ ዝዛረቡ ሓቀኛሃት ዕጡቃት ኤርትራውያን እውን እነው እዮም ጋልፅን እንድሕር ግልፂ እንድሕር ክንዛረብ ኮይና ስለዚሁ እዞም ሓቂ ዝዛረቡ ዘለው ግን ንሕና ንብል ዘለና እዩ ኢድኩም እርክቡ ጽባሕ ምስ ትግራይ መንግስቲ ኮይንኩም ምስ ትግራይ ህዝቢ ኮይንኩም ንፋሽስቲ ኣብይ ኣሕመድና ንኢሳያስ ኣፈወርቂ ናብ ጉድጓድ ቀቢርና ወይ ድማ ብሕጊ ናይ ዓለም እስር ቤት ኣእቲና ህዝቢ ኤርትራን ህዝቢ ኢትዮጵያን ዘይኮነሲ ህዝቢ ትግራይን ህዝቢ ኤርትራን ሰላም ኮይኑ እቶም ወንጀለኛታት ብሕጊ ናብ ወንጀል ክምለሱ ከም ዘለዎም እቲ ሓቀኛ ጎኒ ጎኒ ኮይኑ ሓውን ሓፍትን ብሰላም ክነብር ከም ዘለዎ ተጋሩ ኣሕዋተይ ከምዚ ክብል ተለኹ ሓደ ሓደ ኢኹም ተሓዝኑ ትናደዱ ትሓርቁ ኣለኹም ይርደአኒ እዩ ደሓን ኣነ ንስኻትኩም ከምኡ ኢልኩም ንዓይ ክትድውለይ እንተለኹም ማሰጅ ክትልእኹለይ እንተለኹም ኣይኩርን እየ ብኣኻትኩም ኣሕዋተይ ይርደአኒ እዩ ትልብኹም ክሓርር ተሎማ ናተይ ልበይ እውን ይሓርር እዩ ግን ፀላእቲ ክነብዝሕ የብልና ፀላእትና ግን ክንጋልህ ኣለና ንግለሃ እዮም ቶም ፀላእትና ኤርትራውያን ኩሎም ፈተውትና እዮም ኩሎም ይድግፉና እዮም ኣይበልኩን ኣይብልን እየ የለን እውን ግን ኤርትራውያን ኮይኖም እነው እዮም ናይ ብሓቂ ሰላም ኮይኖም ምስ ህዝቢ ትግራይ ክነብሩ ዝደልዩ ህዝቢ ትግራይ ዝድግፉ ገንዘብ ዘዋፅኡ ሰላማዊ ሰልፊ እናወፁ ትክክለኛ ኣይኮነን ናይ ኤርትራ ወታደር ኣብ ትግራይ ዘሎ ትክክለኛ ኣይኮነን ይውፃእ እናበሉ ገንዘብ ካልእ እንተይቀረ መዓት ገንዘብ ዘዋፅኡ ኤርትራውያን እነውና እዩ ስለዚ እዚ ኣብ ልብኩም ሓዝዎ ኣሕዋት ኣብ ልብና ንሓዞ ኣይንጋገ ኩሉ ግዜ ኤርትራ ንፈልጥ ኢና ትግራይና ኤርትራ ተተዋጊኣ እኮ ፅባሕ ንጎ ክልተ ኢና ንጉዳእ ክልተ ኢና ንቆዩ ንብል ናይ ኣምሓሮ ዕላማ እንታይ እዩ ትግርኛ ንዛረብ ኩልና ኤርትራውያንና ተጋሩ ዓርሲ ብዓርስና ተቃቲልና ዓርሲ ብዓርስና ተዳኺምና ፅባሕ ንጎ ንሳቶም እንታይ እዮም ናብ ዓሰብ ከይዶም ዓሰብ ንክንወስድ ትግራይ ፍርቃ ኣምሓራ ፍርቃ ንኤርትራ መቐለን ኣዲስ ኣበባ ክትትሓዝ እዚ ትዕላሞም እዚ ከዓ ናይ ኣምሓሩ እዱጓት እዮም ሰብ እውን ኣይኮነን ኣነ ጊዜ ክነግረኩም ምስ ኣድጊ እንታይ እዩ ዝበሃል ምስ ኣድጊ ዝወዓለ ዝራቢዕ ህላንተ ዘይለመደ ጥራጥ ለመደ እዩ ንሕና ምስ ኣምሓሩ ምስ እዱግ ዘማየጠና መገዲ የብልና ዘዋዕለና መገዲ የብልና ነምሓሩማ ብቅልፅምና ብሓይልና እምበር ብክብሪ 30 ዓመት ኦልሞስት ዝኸውን 27 ዓመት ማለት ማ 30 ዓመት ዝኸውን ብክብሪ ሒዝና እዮም ኣህፍቲምና እዮም ኣንጊስና እዮም መሊሶም እንታይ ገይሮም ንታ ዘኮለሰቶም ኢ ድማ ተመሊሶም ነኺሶማ ህፃን ቆልዓ ኣዲኡ ክተጥቦ እንተላ ዋላ እታ ፀባ ናይ ደጡ እንድሕር ነቂፃ ኣይነክሳን እዩ ቆልዓ ንምንታይ ብታ ንሳጡ ስለ ተፅግቦ ስለ ተድቅሶ ስለ ነብሱ ተህጥሮ ስለ ዝፈልጣ እዩ 2-3 ዓመት ዘይገበረ ቆልዓ እንድሕር ናይ ደጡ እንድሕር ዘይነኺሱ ኣምሓሩ ግን ንትግራዋይ ኢድ ዝነኽሱ ስለምንታይ እዩ ናይ ባዕልና ዘጥፋእናዮ ስሕተታት ስለ ዘይተኣረምና እዩ ኣሕዋትና ዋላ ሓደ ስሕተት ተበሉ ከይብለና ኢሎም እዮም ፅቡቅ ሰሪሖም እዮም ኣሕዋትና 3 ግዜ እዮም ኩናት ዝዋግኡ ዘሎ ኣሕዋትና ንሳቶም እኮ እቶም ኣሕዋትና ከማና ሃዲሞም ናብ ደገ ምውፃእ ፓስፖርት ናይ ዲፕሎማት ሒዞም ካልእ ሃገር ወፂኦም ንባዕሎም ህይወቶም ምድሓን ቀሊል እዩ ነይሩ ንኣቶም ግን ከ ህዝቢ ትግራይ መሬት ትግራይ ብፀላኢ ብፋሽስታዊ ኣይውረርን ኢሎም እዮም ወፂኦም ዶክተር ደብረፅዮን ማ ሳልሳይ ኩናት ዝዋግኡ ዘለው ሳልኦም ኢና ኮለይ ናይ ትግራይ መከላከይ ጠንኪሩ ከም እንደገና ሒዚ ከም ብሓድሽ ኣትዩ ዝኒሄ ስለንሱ ኢና ከዓ ንሕና ስደተኛ ዝኔና ተጋሩ ንኣሜሪካ ንዩሮፕ ኣእሚና ንምንታይ እዩ ሒዚ ናይ ዩናይትድ አረብ ኤምረት ካብ ኤርትራ ወፂኡ ሃዲሙ ዝኸይድ ዘሎ ሒዚ ንምንታይ እዩ ኣሜሪካ ሒዚ መርከብ ናብ ባሕሪ ሰዲዱ ናብ ኤርትራ ዘፅግዕ ዘሎ እዚ ቃላት እዚዩ ኣግፊ ሓቢለ ምስ ተጋዳላይ እምኒ ዓረይ ድሕሪ 20 ደቂቃ 30 ደቂቃ ፀሪሐ ተመሊሰ ኣግፊ ሓቢለ ዓወታት ናይ ሎማዓንቲ ናይ ትማሊ መሪር ዘለዎ ዘረባታት ክሕልፈልኩም እየ ብጣዕሚ ጠጠው ኣቢለ ናይ ጋሻ ሓውና ኣቶ በረካት ኣዝንጊዐ ስለ ዘለኹ የቀኒየለይ ክብረት ይሃበለይ ታንኪዩ ዝሓወይ
Thank you, Mike. Yakanele. I couldn't be proud of all the things that you have done so far.
Thank you.
And there is more to be expected.
Thank you.
Yakanele.
Thank you. Good night.